All right, guys, if anybody's seeing this, I don't know what happened. Our stream just cut out, so we're getting those guys back online. All right, let's give 1 second here. These other guys will get back on here in just a moment, and then we're going to carry on our conversation. We'll back it up a little bit just in case you guys missed any of that.
All right, we're back.
All right, you guys are back. Good. Let me send this other link out. Then I'll join you guys.
Oh yeah, there was something I was going to say earlier. I remember it now.
I think I'm going to share it on my wall too.
Oops. Like clicking stuff. Facebook's being slow.
Only slow when you need it to. When you don't need it to be. That's what all I know.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like we should be good to go now. Let me get back over here.
Just one motor dying. Golly, that took way too long to do just one friggin' motor.
Yeah, it looks like we're live again, so.
Sweet. What's up, guys? We're back. I don't think anybody's here yet, but whatever.
Okay. So now I found out exactly where we cut off to. So Chuck was telling me, hey, bro, you're a little twitchy on those sticks. You might want to put some Expo. I'm like, what the hell's Expo?
Yeah.
Which led me to start looking into these rates and everything. And so at this time, I'm running the Wizard. And I had settled on Dalprop 5045s. Like when I bought those, I bought a bunch of sets, like 30 or 40 packs, and it's all I flew.
Yeah.
So from a consistency standpoint, I had my hardware, I had my motors, I had my ESCs. Things like camera to me don't really come into the equation because they don't change the flight characteristics. But all the things that apply to the flight characteristics, I wasn't changing. And then I started playing with rates. And the first rate I messed with was my RC rate. And I found one that was pretty close to what I was looking for. It was like 0.71, 0.72. And then I realized that I wanted a little bit more on the outside of the sticks. So I increased my my super rate. And then I found that, this is pretty good, but man, I want to get rid of that twitchiness in the middle of the sticks. And something that you guys may have or may not have is, at least me, I get like these little twitches in my fingers. Okay. Maybe I got some Michael J. Fox starting. I don't know, but, but I get these little twitches.
Yeah.
So by increasing my Expo, I was able to get most of that out. And then I took one day, I'm sitting there, right? And I'm like, what can I do to get rid of this extra little bit? And this was only recently, like in the last 2.5 months, I started putting some deadband in my yaw and my pitch and my roll so that anything under a certain amount of movement just didn't translate. So all this was with an effort, with a purpose of being smooth. That's something that has always just intrigued me, is these super smooth flights that just, they don't look human. They don't look possible to me.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Almost like a Mavic was racing like a racing drone.
Exactly. So
that's a lot of post edit too, though.
Yeah.
Like Gab 707 stuff. Like Noel showed me that guy, and I fell in love with him. But he spends like 16 hours editing a 3 or 5 minute clip or something, just in render time.
We should raise it so they can see us a little bit.
Okay.
But go ahead though. Sorry.
No, you're good. And that's all. Is just saying, that I really had to work my way through this and really discover what I liked kind of on my own, with a little bit of direction from other people, but not much.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that when you start down this path, the single very first thing that somebody should do is decide on their hardware. because and when I say hardware, anything that affects the way your quad flies, right down to, like Ben was saying, your props, because every time you change props, the quad is going to fly a little differently.
Oh yeah.
And in regards to things like when you get to Throttle Curve Expo, which to me is much later down the path, that's not something you do right away. You do that after you have a consistent preference of props and a consistent preference of motors and a consistent frame and all these other things that change the way your quad flies. But some of this has been my personal stance, you know?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I'm flying same frame. The motors are a little different, but same frame. The motors have the same KV. I stick to either, and I'll tell you why I use two. I stick to one of two sets of props, and my primaries are the HQ 5.4.3s, but I also keep 5.4.8s on me, because here's what I've noticed. When I go to someplace, because as much as I travel, right? When I go to someplace that's a higher elevation, those lighter props don't react the way they do when I'm at a low elevation.
Oh yeah, the center air and everything.
Here, let me.
Are we quieter?
They're getting echo on me. Here, let's try that, guys. See if that's any better. Well, then I can't hear you guys, but.
Well,
you said it's fixed. Who knows?
But no, yeah, the higher elevation will definitely, the thinner air, it's going to make it harder for those props to bite. So you definitely will, you will need different props for different, the air thickness that you're working with.
And so my stance, there's a lot of people that their stance is to try everything that's new and popular and exciting every second that it comes out.
Yeah.
My stance has always been to stick with the same thing and try to master it. And so when they were telling Tom this earlier, you know, pick a quad and stick with it, you know, they hit the nail on the head with that one. And then the second he said, and don't play with your throttle curve, I was like, you hold up a hot damn minute. But he's right. He is right. He's not wrong. But I think that that's later down the line. Once you get comfortable with your hardware, because look, I can turn off my Expo. I can turn off my throttle Expo. I can turn down some of that stuff that's not, you know, it's on the outer edges of preference. And I can still fly fine and hit things, just not with the same precision or with the same grace, right? Yeah. So those other things, they're really just to tie up the loose ends. They're not going to change the world for you. They're just going to make these little things better.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing with that throttle expo thing is not necessarily don't mess with it and whatnot. It's always any of those settings like expo and things like that and all your D-set point weight, D-set point transition, all these things are only if it's necessary. If you feel like you can't, if you feel like there's every time you try to pull out of a dive, you don't want to give it too much throttle, and the throttle that you keep in it, like you intuitively go to catch it, not something that you need to learn, but something wherever you go to intuitively catch it. If it doesn't have enough throttle response, you're going to want to add a little bit of add the expo to kind of bump it up in that lower end so that bam, you get a little bit more from that. It's more to making it more intuitive. And one thing I was going to say earlier about like with the whole rates and everything, I've been saying this to a couple of people. I think it's very true. And I think learning to fly and being a good pilot is 5% experience and 95% learning how to adjust your rates. Because you'll spend over a year. Most people, it takes them a year before they start getting into a comfortable fluid. And actually, it takes about a year to learn exactly where you want your rates to be exactly. I mean, to make it intuitive, not something to where it's not that you're flying a quad. You are the. I hate to say it in that weird kind of cliche kind of way, but it's not that you fly it. You know, you don't feel like you're flying anything. You just feel like you are there within the quad. You know what I mean? And that's what. And it's just spending a lot of time adjusting your rates. And that's why I think sims are such a huge, huge advantage to us because you can go in there and just mess with rates all day long and it just doesn't make any, you don't have to worry about, oh, is this too high? Is this going to be too much roll? Am I going to crash with this? Well, who cares? You're in the sim. You'll crash all day long. Yeah. So, you know, it's just, but I think 95% of being a good pilot is finding your rates. Because once you do that, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to do a trick or you do know how to do a trick. If you don't know how to hit a gap or do know whatever, it makes it a lot more. If you're trying to control an aircraft while also trying to do a trick that you don't know, you're not going to go anywhere. But if you know the rates, if you know these rates and they're more intuitive, every response is more like a reaction than it is an input. But then learning any trick becomes a lot easier. Learning, your confidence goes up, and doing everything becomes easier. Because that's more of anything. It's just I think anything in the world, but flying is more about confidence than it is about experience and ability. If you're not confident, you're not going to do well.
That is absolutely right. Hit the nail right on the head. So, for me, and I would guide anybody to do this first, don't worry about your rates. Don't worry about the PIDs. Don't worry about any of that other crap. Pick a set of props, take it out, learn how to fly. Once you know how to fly, then you start tweaking your rates. To me, PIDs are at the end of it because, and I've seen it for myself, I can take stock PIDs and fly all the flaws out of it. It just means that I have to be on top of my game, and I'm not the best at doing that.
No, yeah, PIDs, I think.
Ben says, here's the thing, though. You have to know how to fly a little bit before you can even understand rates or what your rates need to be. I think it just kind
of... Well, no, they go hand in hand. Of course, you need to know how to fly, but what I'm saying is it's a lot easier to learn how to fly and do those things if you also know your rates. You spend time doing both, but I feel like rates are what... Because, a lot of people, you can tell their footage. You can tell when somebody goes from being, amateur style pilot to getting those professional style footage. And a lot of that is to do with rates, I think.
It can. But here's the thing, and you got to remember this. These quadcopters and FPV opened up this hobby to a lot of people like myself who had no prior RC experience whatsoever. So what is our baseline? Our baseline is the fact that beta flight, let's go ahead and say beta flight or butterflight, out of the box without making any adjustments is flyable by everyone.
Yep.
Yes.
So that becomes your baseline. You get out, you hover, you turn, you coordinate your turns, you learn to do that stuff. And while you're doing it, you're going to be like, man, I don't like how twitchy that thing is when I do X, Y, or Z. And that's where you start honing your rates. So to me, for somebody, especially, because again, I'm looking at it from somebody who has no experience with this, your rates come second to flying. And as you work through them, your RC rate pretty much can be not touched. To me, an RC rate is a tweak, but a super rate's very important. An Expo is another tweak, and then throttle is like a third level tweak. It's something you do as you're just trying to figure out, man, every time I come out of a dive, why do I bounce up in the air? Well, you bounce up in the air because you're overcompensating because your quad isn't reacting the way you expect it to react. You can dampen some of that, or you can increase some of that to balance it out. And then, to me, that's just the progression that, because I went, that I think other people should go.
Yeah.
Tell them that thing you told me about when you're taking a turn. It might be your rates. What was that thing?
No, that's what I was going to. I was thinking about saying. I don't know. No, I agree that rates do come second. What I was getting at is what made. Okay, not necessarily a good pilot, but I guess a smooth, watchable pilot is a good way to say that. Like, if you want to be somebody that wants people to watch your footage, rates are huge because you can fly the most terrible, freaking destroyed quad, but if you have your rates right, and then you also, it does take experience. It takes learning how to use throttle, learning how to properly input like stick controls and things like that. But it makes it so much more intuitive when your rates are right. That's all I was getting at. It's not necessarily that. I think as you learn to fly over that year, you're going to learn more and more about rates. You're going to learn more about PIDs. You're going to learn more about flying. But I think what's going to be the biggest improvement in how you fly and how confident you feel about flying is your rates. Your rates make you confident.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The rates are what turn your quad from this thing that you're flying into an extension of yourself.
Yes. Exactly. Nailed it. Right on the head. That's exactly what I'm getting at.
But even in all that, I don't look at it and say, well, if you want to make yourself watchable, because that's a whole nother conversation. And a lot of these new guys that are coming in and buying GoPros and smashing them into the blacktop out in front of their house, they need to slow their fucking roll and put some priorities on what they're doing. And they need to stop trying to be the next cool YouTuber thinking that they'll just, you know, click the right checkbox and they'll be flying on rails.
Oh yeah.
And they need to just learn how to fucking fly.
That's why I haven't bought a GoPro yet, and I've been flying for 8 months, 9 months probably.
I will admit though, since I recently got a GoPro, there's something about a GoPro being on your quad that makes you just want to do something daring. It just makes you want to do something risky, and that's not a good thing. But at the same time, I've noticed when I would go out and fly freestyle for the most part, because I mean I am a racer. I don't fly freestyle as much. I like to go out and find a couple trees that I'll do my race drills on or whatever. But when I do freestyle, you know, trying to find the words for this. Hold on. Go on about something else.
I was going to say, correction, I forgot. I did have my 1 year anniversary of flying because I was flying whoops, tiny whoops, and then I built that drone. About the time I got married, my 1 year anniversary was just then. But yeah, like as far as learning, you're like now it's just like I'm just about confident enough to get a GoPro, but instead I bought this like $35 thing that's pretty good footage. As long as it's 50 to 100% better than Fat Shark DVR footage, I'll be happy. Like that, that's all. But when I just don't want to break a $200 GoPro, and I want to see what the future of GoPro is, to be honest.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, just looking at our chat today when GoPro came up, it's like, oh, you know, Chuck's got a place you can get one. Dude, you better get one from Chuck because I don't know when the next time you're gonna find one at that price. And it's like, well, what about the warranty? Well, nope, Best Buy's not doing that anymore. It's cash only or it's store credit only.
Well,
so
I'll tell you what, yeah, the warranties are going away. And I'm going to be honest, you can still find good refurbished or brand new, but there's nothing wrong with refurbished from GoPro sessions available on eBay for $180 or less shipped. What's going to happen is instead of sticking our cameras under our tires and running them over just to take them in and take the easy way out, we're going to get good at repairing these things.
Yeah, those sites like
yeah, just let me buy a case. I don't care.
iFixit or whatever. iFixit has tutorials on how to open up a GoPro and fix them. Mm-hmm. And they sell the toolkits. Yeah, they sell all the toolkits for it. Like, it's amazing. Like, iFixit, if you ever want to fix a tablet, a phone, anything like that, cameras, iFixit can do.
Well, and all the major parts that wear out are available. I mean, you know, yeah. I've got a spare screen from when I broke a screen because this costs less than paying for the Best Buy warranty to exchange it. And, you know, little things like the tempered glass, people don't believe me when I tell them, you can take that GoPro and hit directly on that tempered glass, and the tempered glass will absorb all of the energy and leave the GoPro glass underneath perfectly unscathed.
Oh, yeah. No, those things are freaking awesome. I got to get one.
Yeah, I'm going to get a GoPro soon. I just wanted to see the quality because if I can get away with a $35 camera. Especially because I'm a racer, the thing's 14 grams. Like,
yeah, but see, here's the thing we started to touch on, right? So if you're following chat, Ben went exactly where my mind was going. When I first started doing this, I bought a Polaroid Cube. And initially, now, I'm not going to lie. Initially, this was because, oh, man, I'm going to get the hang of this. And, you know, I'm going to put my stuff out there and I'm going to be the next big thing, right? Well, that came to an end very quick. But let me tell you something I noticed from the very first time I watched my footage. I realized that as I'm out there doing it, I don't realize I'm not consciously taking in all the things I'm doing, okay? So being able to watch this allowed me to reflect on what I was doing and really think about what I was going to do next time that was different. And I think more than anything, it allowed me to increase my flying ability and my skills at times where I was open to do it. What I mean is that there are times where I've pushed myself and where I know that I had periods of a lot of growth. And then I know there are times where I hit plateaus where I just wasn't doing anything new. I was just riding all the skills I already had. But when I was ready to move, that footage was there. And irregardless of if I ever shared it with anyone else, I was watching it, and I'm watching it going, look what I did there. And look what I could have done here. And that's an invaluable tool for anybody.
You know, and your goggles. And like for me, footage, I watch my footage over and over and over because I'm trying, especially like just like the couple practice runs from that race I was able to do. I've watched those 100 times.
Anybody in aviation sitting here thinking like, just say the word. It's called debriefing. It's a huge thing that you do. Anybody that flies and wants to improve their flying always goes back and reviews everything that happened to determine if anything can be done more efficiently, if anything was done wrong, if there's a reason why there was a mistake. Like if a mistake happened in flight, if there was something that they go back and they see if there was anything they could have done to prevent that. But I mean, it's the same thing for us because we're trying to find a specific flight. When we go fly, we don't just go fly to fly. I mean, we do. I mean, we kind of do. But for the most part, when we're flying, we're trying to find a purpose and a specific thing that we want to do for ourselves, even if it's just for ourselves.
Yeah.
Debriefing will give you every bit of that because especially if you're sitting there and you're flying, you're like, oh man, this quad is so tuned. I finally got it right. And you go back and you watch and you see vibes in your video. You're like, oh fuck, well there's more I need to do. So it's
well, with that being said, I think going out and buying that $35 cheap 14-gram GoPro might be the way to go out, do all those debriefings and all that. And then when you're like, I flew this spot 20 times and I'm ready, I found the gaps, whatever, you slap your $200 Session 5 or $280, Hero 6 or whatever. Like that's when you slap your good GoPro on, or when you meet up with the buddies. But when you're just flying around to go capture, buy the $35 cheap thing or the whatever will fit in that, even that stupid Polaroid one for like $69. It's the same exact size. It'll do 720 as long as it doesn't stutter. You want it, even if it's jello-y a little bit and there's a lot more barrel distortion, the sound's off, whatever. That's good. But if it's stuttering, you won't see where you're fucking up. Like that's where I watched like reviews of like all these little micro ones today, and all of them have this stutter issue except that Hawkeye. So, and I don't care. Like I don't need 4K. The other thing is you guys deal with your 4K bullshit, and none of you have a high-end rig to edit that shit. I don't care unless you're Iggy. And like you're always struggling, dude. Noel's like, dude, I need to dump my SD card before we go fly. So I'm waiting 30 fucking minutes for him to do that. Like, there's no fucking reason you should be running 4K unless you have a purpose. You're going out to make a certain film. Yeah, when New Palooza, you guys, that's fine. But not every fucking flight you got to be recording 4K, whatever, 120 FPS that shit's at now. I won't even touch 4K for another 4 years.
Here's the thing. Nobody is recording at 4K except Icky. And Icky's doing it for Icky reasons, and nobody can tell him otherwise. Here's the thing. He's really not wrong for what he's doing, because there are times where he's zooming into a scene, and if he was running 1080, he might be exporting at the equivalent of 1080, but he's using the 4K so that he can pick and choose where he wants that focal point to be. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, from a GoPro standpoint and flying quads, nobody's running 4K. The most anybody's running is 2.7, and most people are split. And I'm going to tell you, I went back and forth on this. There's a lot of people that are in the 2.7K arena at 30 frames per second, or they're 1080 at 60.
Okay, sorry. I confused 4K with 2.7.
No, hell no.
It's the same to me, anything over.
Now, here's what we're doing, though. Even the guys that are recording at 1080 are upscaling to 2.7 just to try to best YouTube at its game of destroying everybody's goddamn footage.
Yeah, I noticed that because my DVR stuff looks crisp in Premiere, and it just looks fucking horrible when I get it to YouTube, and I've tried everything.
Yeah.
But that's the whole reason I switched to 2.7K 30 frames per second, is because it is the preferred upload. Like you get really good clarity into YouTube better than any other resolution and frame rate.
So where I've recently gone, because I don't like the motion blur at 30 frames per second. Some people say they like it and they find it perfect. I personally don't like it. I prefer that 60 frames per second. So what I'm doing is recording at 1080 60, doing an upscale in Premiere, really just kind of stretching the video, and I'm exporting at 2.7 so that when I upload to YouTube, it plays back at 1080 pretty darn well.
Okay, yeah.
And here's the deal: is if you upload at 2.7, you are getting crispier images, but you get that motion blur. If you upload at 1080, it's not quite as crispy, but you get less of the motion blur. And that's where I find that most people are split. So until we find a way to get YouTube to stop completely thrashing everything, or, and this will never happen, or everybody uses air views, but they won't make money with it, like they really make anything with YouTube, then that's where we'll be.
Well, what I was going to go back to saying is, if your purpose for that flight is for a flight video and you're going to put it out on YouTube, use your GoPro, record the highest you can, you know, make it easier. The more data, that's why I shoot RAW on all my digital cameras. I want as much data as possible in post-edit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to pull out those vibrant colors or those shadows areas to make them pop or whatever. Like, because I come from a photography background, and yeah, so sorry, this weird thing flew in my face. I live in Texas, crazy bugs. My point is, if you're just doing it to debrief or review, like DVR is almost good enough. Like,
yeah, especially with the Eagle 2, it looks like HD.
Yeah, the Eagle 2, especially when you play it back in your goggles. But
yeah.
But there's no point to be recording every flight you do in 1080. Well, I mean, 1080 is like I'll probably do it once I have that camera. But what I mean is like anything above.
My thing is, I see a lot of these pilots coming out and they're like, "Oh, look, I found some flight footage from about 6 months ago," and they make a freaking amazing edit. So I try to record everything. I try to record everything at the same quality, so that if I go back 6 months on footage, I can still put it up after a video that I just recorded a week ago, and it's going to look the same. You know what I mean? They're all going to look similar. And maybe just a 15-second clip that I throw into a video, but if I can ever find a way to actually edit clips on my phone.
Yeah, but you need hard drive space for all that. Oh, yeah. It's just like,
Look, you don't have to have a workhorse, but I don't buy that whole editing on my phone thing. That just, I don't know. I don't think there's enough there.
That last video I put up, I did all that I did that from my phone.
He's done some pretty impressive stuff from his Sony phone.
GoPro quick, man. On a phone that supports 4K, you can play the footage. It'll play clearly. You can adjust colors as long as you don't record in 60 frames per second, because it will output at 30 frames and it will make it very jumpy and skippy looking. But at 30 frames per second, it handles it like a dream. It just, I mean, I cut the clip down, I changed the color a little bit, and added music, added that little picture at the intro. It took me about an hour to get the whole thing to where it was ready to upload onto YouTube.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, mine are taking longer, but I'm going to be honest, I have eased into the icky way of things, meaning when I first started, I was really just putting pieces together and then putting music over it. And then I got a little interested in transitions because I realized that I could seamlessly start to piece things together. And then I wasn't happy with the color, so I started playing with color adjustments. And now I have this thing where I'm trying to pick and choose, you know, the best of everything to piece in there. And me, this is where we differ. I run with a camera on all the time. And I don't mean flying with a camera it's turned off. I am recording all the time because to me, there's no such thing as a practice run. I could take off and immediately be in a zone and just start hitting things. And man, and I've had that happen where I think I'm going to do some practice runs, then I'll go back and do it. And I nailed my practice runs, got nervous, and couldn't hit shit again.
Exactly.
So me, I run the same way every time. And that is GoPro running, ready to roll, and I have oodles of footage just sitting in folders. Now, what I do is after I hit a 12-month spell when I go through cleanouts is I keep my compiled videos, but I'll get rid of the raw footage that I don't want anymore. Yeah. But I earmark certain things that I might use later, and I leave it around. But I hold on to it for a while just in case. I keep all my project files. I keep all that stuff on an external drive.
So I got a lot of space to hold on. And what I've been doing now with like my DVR is I'll watch it back before I even put it in Premiere. And basically rename. What are you doing?
4 terabyte external drive. I save everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get one.
I got 4 terabytes free on my computer, but like with my DVR, I started going through and I picked out, okay, that's the one where I power looped into the tree. So I named the clip from the DVR, power looped into tree. And then the one where I had some really good like proximity stuff in that tree, I wrote proximity. I just put like tags on it so I knew what, when I went into Premiere, because it's like picked is 004, picked 005 is a stupid DVR name.
So look, here's what I do, and I'm going to show you what's on my laptop right now, is I create these folders as I'm pulling data off, and I keep it by date.
Yeah, I
the
do
first
that.
4 of the year, and then month, and then day. And then when I go in here, I keep all the original file names too. And so in here, now, and I do that because the GoPro obviously named things GoPro whatever. And then my other camera has its own naming schema. And then in there, I might be grabbing certain things. Oh, and my DVR has its own as well. So it allows me to just, for the way I operate, to know what I'm looking at. It keeps it in the order that I shot it. Because if I start renaming things, it's going to start being out of order. And sometimes that screws with the story, right? So that's the way I keep it. And then inside my project files. Now, let me show you something. Let me get in here. Whoops. Try that. And then I'll switch this.
Yeah, see, I have mine all in dated folders.
Yeah, I usually do dates. I need to go back and start.
I should let the dogs out.
Let me give Premiere a moment to start up. It's not exactly a speed demon on here.
I'm running a freaking like 8-year-old laptop to do all my stuff, so I understand. It's
Mine's
terrible.
only like a year and a half, but it's a ThinkPad and it's meant for business, so it's only running an i5 with like 12 gigs of RAM. And I mean, it does have an SSD. It's not a bad computer. It's just not a multimedia computer.
Yeah, mine's got an i5 with like 4 gigs. So believe me, I hear you. Puppies.
All right. Let me screen share this.
Gotta go way down. You got a hot solder.
Oh my goodness.
There's all this stuff on your bed.
There we go. Tell you what, let's just do entire screen. Wow, that was a neat trick.
Oh no! Boo.
All right, let me try that again. Oh, I know what I did.
12th dimension.
All right, we're going to present to everyone. Let me minimize this. Okay, so here's what I do, right? So I'll go ahead and I pull my clips in, and then I'll watch them, right? And I'll find a segment that I like, and I earmark it as I'm going through. So I'll basically say, you know, I want this clip to start here, and I'll watch it until I want it to stop. And I stop it, and I create sub-clips, okay? And what I end up with, and this is where I'll say, you know, this was my awesome effing loop or whatever. And then so as I have these things, I'll start to get a list of stuff. And then as I start placing it on my timeline, I'll just create a bin, which is really a folder. And as I put it on the timeline, I'll also drag it into here. Now I know the clips that I still have to place and the ones I don't. And I'll even create another bin. Like, let's say as I go through, I say, well, I don't like this subclip or that subclip. I'll say, you know, processed, meaning that I looked at it and I decided I didn't want to use it. And so it's just really organizational, but I do all this in my project, not in my raw files.
Oh.
Yeah, I do that. I do that a lot. Like most of my DVR stuff is all dated. But what I would do is I would drag all the clips on the timeline and just go through them and then just cut. Like first was noise to OSD to ARM cut. And then at the end, after I disarm and then cut out every crash and go through and then rewatch till, oh, I'll keep that, blah, blah. But for the most part, like, I would just do full freaking rips with a song.
Gotcha. And I think that's the way Chuck does it too, is he just kind of drags his clips on and then cuts them and slices them and just he finds it easier that way, whereas I like to go about it a slightly different way.
Well,
I like the way you go about it, Josh. I like that. That's seems to me like a good way to do it. You can just make these sub clips and sub files to give you the clips that you're looking for, so that you don't have to go through and mess with an entire video. Or oh, okay, I wanted to use this for like 3 clips, and so now I got to upload the whole freaking video and find the 3 clips. You already have the 3 clips saved separately. You just throw them in there. I like that efficiency.
Well, and then I can pull and drag the clips around without having to go back to the original source file too. So
Exactly.
and then when you take into consideration that anymore, it's taken me 2, 3, 4 days to edit something before I'm even to a spot where I want to watch it through to see if it's right, or maybe even play some music on it.
Yeah.
It just allows me to kind of have set starting points and end points as I walk away from it. I don't have the stress of trying to remember. So
see,
we find our methods that work for us,
Yeah, my background's mostly live broadcast and then like Adobe After Effects, like compositing, and so like when I'm in, if I show you like my life in FPV intro, it's literally there's probably 100 layers of different things in there, and it's all because I've been using Photoshop since like version 2.0, and so like layers are huge. See, I don't really do the sub clips. I just do sequences. I don't know. I guess because I'm just used to nested timelines. Like
that's similar.
So what I'll do is I'll have a main, and I already have a pre-rendered like intro video sometimes, like my life in FPV clip. It's already pre-rendered, ready to go. I just like drag that into a project and then just drop it on the main. And then if I do a song, I usually have that on the main. Any sort of like coloring, like global, like tinting or whatever, like. I usually do that on not on the individual clips unless it's absolutely needed, but across the whole after the whole thing's cut, it's on basically one timeline that's nested in the main timeline. So I'll apply the effect on that audio to
the chat.
What chat?
The chat.
Oh, the chat.
Yeah, just to make sure we're not missing anybody in the chat.
They're just talking to themselves.
Shirts. I'm kidding. I kid.
I kid. It will kill. Do you guys watch that Forged in Fire?
What is it? What did it say? I couldn't hear you.
Forged in Fire. Blacksmiths. Look it up.
I'm already interested.
Dude, these guys, their whole purpose, they get challenged to make knives, and they compete against 4 other blacksmiths. And then at the end, they get to go back to their home forges to craft a sword or an axe or something bigger. But here's the thing. This isn't just making it. Then they get actually used, like in battle circumstances, to see if they stand up to it.
Like they made this like 8-foot crazy, like insane sword, dude. And because like based off like all the video games we play where it's like this giant fucking like the Dark Souls sword or whatever, it's just fucking. Or when you said, remember when you had the flag at the house, you're like, what did you say?
Dark Soul, yeah.
Yeah, the Dark Soul sword. He's like, dude, they literally like made one that's just freaking big, dude. And I don't know how they picked that damn thing up, man.
Gotta check that out, man.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
Sounds like super nerding out to me, and I love all that. I'm into swords and shit. And
metal.
But so what else do you want to talk about, man? Anything else?
That was the major topic for me. I mean, I'm not going to be up too much longer because I got to do some work tomorrow. But this was good. This allowed us to really iron this process out because, yeah, I was going to be doing it anyway. But if you guys definitely want to do it as a group thing, we'll make sure that, maybe we get Ben on once in a while or get Chuck on once in a while if we can get him at a McDonald's to use their hotspot.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It'd be cool. Have the NoobTube Weekly or something.
The NoobTube Weekly.
Yep. Yeah, so what you might want to do, let me see. You guys, we might want to start just a list of topics somewhere so that we have somewhere to just jot down our ideas.
I can start like a Google
Yeah, something like that.
drive
I don't want to
by
go
or
too
something.
far in depth. Maybe if you want to make yourself some bullet points, but I really like the way the conversation evolves with us just kind of talking through it.
No, I
So
say
don't
we
get
pick a
gung ho with
topic.
it. It's just somewhere to put it so you don't forget.
Yeah, I say pick a topic, and I'm all about just like winging it because I think it's the most natural. I think sometimes yeah, bullet points are great. I mean, but yeah,
It helps keep you on track.
Not only that, but if it starts to become a thing, we can start asking the community what
yeah,
they want to talk
community
about.
questions.
What is it that they want to hear about, and posting on a post on Facebook, and then we'll make that a subject of the night or whatever, or several subjects or whatever.
The Sacred Order of the Noob page. I like it.
Sacred Order of the
That's
Noob.
what Ben said. I like it.
Oh yeah, no, I know that one.
Oh, do you? Okay, I was going to say that one's not one that everybody's aware of.
I'm aware of it. Not very many people, I don't think, are.
It's kind of like a moderation or an administrator spot for us just to throw things out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the inner circle, but you guys are very much inner circle. So what we have to do is run it by the rest of the Sacred Order just to make sure it's cool. And if it is, we'll add you.
I love how this just turned into like some fucking like Black Ops kind of thing. Must have run it through with the Sacred Order before we have clearance. Yeah.
What? No, this is good. And I'll tell you, you guys, as much as you might have been nervous, you guys are good on camera. I mean, it's as simple as sitting in a room and talking, sitting in a shed and talking like we were.
Yeah, I could use the excuse that I want to be on the internet, but I just wanted to sit here and talk to you for an
hour. I'm so flattered. No, that's good stuff. Yeah, so we'll get a list of topics running. In my experience, I don't put out there like, what do you want to hear? Because people don't really respond to that. My best advice is, and this is why I wanted us to have a spot to put a list, you'll notice certain topics throughout the week or certain topics popping up or something of interest that you think is interesting.
Yeah.
And instead of putting it out there for other people to tell you that they think it's right, you just make that your topic.
That's a good idea.
You create the interest.
Something I've learned is that people want to be led. They don't want to have to lead. So we become the leaders and we lead the conversation.
I got you. I hear you.
Makes it easier for us, actually.
Yeah, I like it. Because, a lot of people, I've noticed that it's weird how everybody complains about videos that talk too much, but everybody wants freaking more and more podcast style, more hours of people just sitting there talking. And it's like, make up your mind. But people love it. And I love it. That's what when I drive at work, that's what I listen to a lot of the times.
Well, I'm like super into that ASMR shit. So I'm thinking about doing an ASMR quad related, where it's just like I build quads and whisper.
You're into A to M?
Of course.
Oh, man. No, but that's funny you mention that because I do a lot of that too. Like the UAV Futures, because he goes on these 20-minute tirades, or the Bob Rugi talkathons, or any of the live streams that I just happen to miss. That's what I listen to when I'm driving to or from the airport.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
I love, even when I'm coding, it's hard. I'll listen. So I have to watch it again and again and again. But because I have a lot of audiobooks, like audible.com, I love that shit. I get the free credit every month. I get a new book or whatever. But while I'm working, because of the type of it, I wish sometimes I was just a driver because you could just listen and actually focus on it. Because driving is just so once you're doing it or whatever,
no, it isn't.
Wow.
So here's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Thursdays and Fridays are pretty much on lockdown. Weekends are not always the most reliable because people are out doing their party thing. Mondays are out for me because I'm usually on a plane or driving or something. But if you guys want to pick Tuesday or Wednesday, those are pretty reliable days for me. And we can pick that because I noticed there's not a ton going on Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm usually free Thursday nights because, I've had a couple. I think about my issue and everything while I'm not driving at the moment. But yeah, that's Thursday nights are my clear nights, but I can probably work with them in some way to get other nights off, especially if we have it planned or something,
Yeah.
I can
And
switch
that's
with
kind of what I'm
somebody.
saying. Is that other? It's not that I'm saying that we can't do it on those other days. Just think about it,
Oh, for sure.
and we'll find a good time slot, and we'll just do it. 3 of us will just smash it.
That'd be fun. I like it. I like the idea.
Oh yeah.
All right.
dude.
Well, let us go ahead and put that post and just make sure that nobody has a problem with you guys being in the sacred order, and then we'll get you guys added, and that'll be our scratch pad spot.
I'm already in.
Okay.
it. Should
Okay.
already be in. I think Ben added me last year whenever we were starting the whole Noobapalooza 2 thing.
Okay. That's right. Chris was a little bit later to the game.
Yep.
Yes.
But y'all convinced me to stay in Texas.
Yeah.
You'll see there's not a whole lot exciting that goes on there. We go months without a single thing being posted.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, I
that's
know.
why we got the new crew.
The Noobapalooza chat.
The new the Palooza chat.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap this up. So
Heck yeah, man.
anybody who enjoyed the conversation as much as we did, awesome. For the whole 3 people that stopped into this round, we actually went up to 9 on the first round for a little while until we dropped out.
Yeah.
But just in case anybody's watching or sees this later, we had a good time. We're going to make this a regular thing. You guys tune in for that stuff later, and happy crashing.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.